Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadget. For all your kayak fishing accessory needs, go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, coolers, and lighting. Go to pelican.com. The 153 Bait Company. For all your hard and soft bait needs, go to the 153anglers.com. Now let's get this show started.
Facebook Live, YouTube. What's going on? Little different demographic here, Jay.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a lot more roomier in here.
Even though you're not sitting right next to me, you still seem awfully close to me.
Oh, that's weird.
No, we're doing this remote tonight. We got Mike back for the final part 3 of we've been talking about, marketing yourself, sponsorships, pro staffs, things like that. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more tonight. Jay and I are remote. We're getting prepped up for hunting season. Illinois bow season opens tomorrow. Wisconsin bow season's already open. Southern Wisconsin duck season opens Saturday. So
it's all happening at once.
We got a lot of preparation we're getting amped up for. So, but we're super stoked. We didn't want to not do a show tonight. So let's get Mr. Mckinstry in the house. Mike, welcome.
What's up?
How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, man. I literally just got off the water like 45 minutes ago, so I'm doing pretty good. I still smell like fish, which is a good thing.
Nice. Well, I mean, that means you had at least a good day on the water, correct?
Yeah, well, what's funny is I always film in the mornings, and I wait till the sun comes up. We have this thing figured out where we know when the sun's going to be consistent for about 5-6 hours, so we don't have to worry about lighting changes as much. We went out today. We had to go at nighttime. It's the first time I've ever had to film at night for the show, or like in the afternoon, like 3 to 7. So fishing was terrible from 3 to 6, which is pretty much normal for every day. But we finally, from 6 to 7, they were on fire. So it ended up being a good day, but it started out rough.
Nice. Super cool, man. Well, it's good to hear you're still filming for the show, getting episodes ready. So will that air this season or next season?
Next season. The season ends today. The season ends today for 2021. So today's the last day of the season for Basquatch Hunter TV. The Basquatch Hunter starts April 2022.
Nice. So a little bit of a break coming up.
What's funny is everyone always says that, but it's the opposite. My busiest time is between now and April. It's because now I'm filming everything for next season, or at least most of it, editing everything, working on all my new sponsors for next season, all the new contracts, all the new paperwork, all the network stuff, the FCC stuff, the crew, everything gets. This is the busiest time. Hopefully we have all the trade shows and boat shows from January to March again that I get to go to. So this is my busiest time of the year. This is the time of year where I don't get to fish as much, but I get to work twice as much.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. I like it. Well, that kind of ties into, what we're talking about and stuff like that. So if you guys missed part 1, part 2, you could always go back and watch on Facebook, YouTube, listen on the podcast. We got Brad Hurlboss in the chat. I don't know what the heck he's talking about, but part 1, we established figuring out the base, your structure, your niche, things like that. Last one, we talked about promoting yourself, starting to work into maybe some pro staff deals and things like that. So I figured this week for the final one, we'll work into, all right, man, we're established. We got some pro staffs. We've been doing a great job promoting these companies and things like that. When do you try to make that next push into an actual sponsorship where you're getting, free product, maybe some money, things like that. And how do you go about doing that? Because I always get that question, like, for me, like in my experience, like those situations just kind of happened. Or I kind of had some conversations and was like, look, I'd like to do this and I can do this, this, and that. And, maybe it works out. So what's your recommendation on that?
Well, I feel like this is kind of like my specialty, which is kind of a weird thing, but in 3 different industries now, I have made somewhat of a living doing a hobby, I guess you could say, because of the same thing. Is I got really good at learning how to be valuable, learning how to create revenue. And that's kind of where this part of it falls in, is once you get sponsorships and once you get established, like in the first part, we talked about getting on the radar. Second part, in establishing yourself and getting a plan. Second part, we talked about actually inking a deal with a brand, like actually getting a deal and working with brands. And now we're talking about, making real money, being able to pay bills and be able to actually, do this for a living, or at least, be able to do it for free and get some money on the side. I think the best, I'm trying to find the shortest path to say this, because you know how I get sometimes where I just go off for like an hour. I'm trying not to do that. I want to give you like, Jay's like, just do it, whatever. I'm wearing, I can't even see you right now, bro. You're like, oh,
I know.
He's all camoed in.
I'm hiding from the world.
Yeah.
Internet can't see me today.
It's not working.
Yeah, it might work against this wall a little though.
I was gonna say, you kind of do match your surroundings. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like who wears wallpaper camo?
Yeah, hey, it's the new black.
Anyway, so when you get to this level, I feel like the most important thing that you need to think about is put yourself in the other person's shoes. And I say this all the time, but like think about if you be in the company and would you pay yourself to do something? And would you see value in yourself? And if not, then you know what you need to work on. And if you do, then that's where the fun starts, where you start telling a brand, hey, now we've done this. We've established a relationship. I've been on your pro staff. I've done these marketing things. You've seen what I can do. And assuming you've provided a positive track record and been able to show, like, look, my efforts are turning into sales. I'm converting viewers into customers. And, this is actually turning into money for you. Then you're creating your own budget almost. You know what I mean? Like if you do the first step that we talked about in the first set, or the second step that we talked about in the second set, if you do those 2 things, you're already proving yourself. You wouldn't get to step 2 past step 1 if you didn't prove yourself. You won't go to this step 3, if you didn't prove yourself in step 2. So when you go to a brand, now you get to tell them like, hey, look, here's what I've proven. Here's what I've done. I've already done the work. And now I want to have a budget for this. Like now I want to be able to get paid for my time, get paid for my efforts, get paid for my work. And here's how it makes sense. And kind of like in step 1, where you have to make a business plan to start your brand and start what you're doing, you kind of need to do the same thing all over again in this stage, where you need to make a business plan, but it's more of like a media kit or sales deck style, where you're, here's your accomplishments, here's your track record, here's what I've done, here's what I have to offer, here's what I want in return, here's what you'll get in return. That's what a sales deck and media kit essentially does. And it's kind of like a brochure of what you do, I guess, like a sales brochure. And now you can do that step. And once you hit that step, then brands start looking at you a little differently. They start realizing that you're an asset, that you're more of an employee, like they're going to hire you and pay you to do a job. And going through stage 1 and stage 2, which we did in part 1 and part 2 of this step, or this process, will prepare you for this process. Like for step 3, it'll prepare you for this phase where you'll already know how to talk to the brand. You'll already have a little bit of a reputation. You'll have a little bit of a history with at least this brand, or if not other brands that you can use as references to. So now when you're asking for something, you're not asking for something really, you're earning it instead, which is the main key of getting paid. You guys know this from the podcast. Like you can't make money before you make the podcast. You have to make the podcast first, and then you can prove yourself and build a following and build a reputation. And that's where you're at now. Now you're at the step where, this is where I pretty much was at 6 years ago, is where I was like, cool, now I want to do this for a living. So how do I make real money? And the main question wasn't how do I make real money? It was how do I make these brands real money? I've had a lot of sponsors tell me like, oh, we don't have a budget for this, but we'd love to work with you. And that's my favorite thing when someone says that, because I'm like, cool, let's get creative. Let me find a way to create a budget for you. If I made you $15,000, would you feel comfortable giving me 10? And they would, of course, someone's going to say, yeah, if you make me 15, I can give you 10. Like if you make me that money, then we get creative and think of different ways. How can I promote you? How can I market you differently? Like, how are you being promoted now? What can I do differently than you're doing now so I can make an impact? All these different avenues where you can find a way, like we talked about last week, be unique and do it your own way. Now you got to find that way to do that for each brand. And that's how you create your own budget. So even these small bait companies who don't have money, or a small fishing company or a mom and pop bait shop who don't have a budget to sponsor people, you can easily tell them like, hey, look, I'm asking for $1,000 total for the season to cover tournament fees.
Sure.
Then you can say, now I need to know, being a business person, I know I need to make you $2,000. Does that make sense? And they're going to go, yeah, of course. You make me an extra $1,000 and I'll give you $1,000. Like that makes total sense. So then you got to find a way to do it. So that's where you're at with the stage is make a plan of attack where you're going to go, I'm going to market this brand. So if I'm marketing Pedal and Fin podcast, so you guys are already marketed on social media, on a bunch of streaming apps, right? And Waypoint, some other stuff, right?
Streaming apps, Waypoint, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, so you guys are already promoting and marketing. So if I was going to promote Paddle and Fin and wanted to be valuable to you, I'm not going to promote you on social media. I'm not going to promote, because that's not going to give you any value unless I have a huge following versus your following. I'm not going to promote you on on YouTube or any of those other platforms that you're already on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find a way to promote you in a market you're not even in yet. I'm going to try to find a way to create value for you that you don't already have. You already have value on social media. You already have value everywhere else. So if I was going to promote you and want you to sponsor me, I would say, look, Paddle and Fin, let me lay down a business plan of how I can promote you in this hunting world that I'm in. You're not in that world. Let me promote you in that world, because if you gain any percentage of market share in the hunting world, it's a bonus for you because you have 0 market share in the hunting world, or in a different group that I'm in, whatever it is, whatever you have to offer, whatever other way you can do it. Or, hey, I do these classes where I have 5,000 people show up throughout the season. I'm going to make Paddle and Fin like the big brand we use, assuming you're not a podcast or a brand, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Then I have something to offer you where I'm going to create new revenue for you. I'm going to create a new revenue stream that's going to give you a budget to give me. You know what I mean? I don't
absolutely.
there, but that's like, it's literally like it's my inside tip of how to make any hobby a living, like how to make any hobby a career. I've done it multiple times, and that's how I do it. Is you do something unique, do something different. And when you're trying to find a brand, every single brand needs to be promoted differently. Every brand needs to be represented differently because they all have different markets and different demographics, and you find a way to do it differently for them, and you'll create a new budget for them. And then it's a lot easier when you ask for money. It's a lot easier if you earned it already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so absolutely.
That's literally like my secret tip of how to do that.
Couple questions coming in. Dustin Hoy. The last one was last week, Thursday, and then part 1 was 3 weeks before that. You can find that on Facebook, YouTube, and all the podcast platforms. So we've been doing this 3-part series with Mike, and we touched on this next one last week. How important is having a social media following into getting sponsors?
It depends what you're looking for in a sponsorship. Because if you're looking for a sponsorship that is based off social, like literally promoting on social media, you have to have a following. There's guys that work on teams that I'm part of that literally don't have a Facebook. And
sure.
I remember in the beginning, I was like, this is crazy. How can this dude, he's 74 years old. He has no social media. He doesn't probably even know how to use a smartphone. Actually, I know for a fact the person I'm thinking of right now does not know how to use a smartphone. Because I've had talks with him over the phone before of like, hey, here's how you take a picture. I need you to send me a picture of this for the team.
Sure.
But this dude has a huge following, but his following is in person. Like when he shows up to a big bass boat tournament, people know who he is and people are there to listen to him, and he's televised, and so his following is totally different. So for him, social media means nothing. I'm sure some sponsors would wish that he had social media following, but at the same time, it does not create revenue for him. Where on my end, that's how I started. So when I started, I was really focused on numbers. I was really focused on social media followings until I realized that I could do something a little bit more unique and different where I didn't need to focus on social media. So social media followings are only as important as your business plan is. So if your business plan is based on social media, which if you haven't seen, there's no name, it just says Facebook user. Facebook Mr. User. If you go on to part 1 and listen to part 1 where we talked about making a business plan and making some strategy to what you want to do in the industry, that'll probably answer your question a little bit too on how important a social media following is. It's more important to have quality over quantity, no matter what numbers you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say too, I think it's important to like bring up the way people use the word sponsors. So with like Facebook user, like depending on if you're talking about the pro staff level or like legit sponsors, kind of like where Mike's at, there's definitely a difference because I know that word is kind of interchanged with people on. So just, in case you don't know, pro staff is more of a you're getting things at a pretty gross discount, but you're required to have that presence on social media. You're actually be required to do certain things, post 1 to 3 times a month, keep it clean. I mean, there's going to be all kinds of other stuff that go with it.
Sure.
Mike's level is a little different because he's trying to make a living on it. So he's actually on the business side of things, which I don't want to discount pro staffers because I know that's a good gateway to get into this kind of stuff.
Got to start somewhere, man.
And that doesn't go away though either. Like people always think that like there's stages that you move away from. Mm-hmm. There's still brands that reach out to me that say, hey, we don't have we're startup. We don't have anything. But if we give you one of our products, would you use it? And I say, look, I'll use any product for free if I like it. I'll promote your product on top of that if I have a budget to do it. You know what I mean? Like I'll use any product in my show, in my daily use, whatever, if I think it's a great product and I really believe in it. But if you want me to like be like the infomercial guy for you, then that's where we have to talk money because that's what I do for a living. So
sure.
And that's so pro staffs don't go away. Like there's brands that I work with right now that don't pay me anything. I just get free product because they want me to use their product and I like their product. And I'd rather be with someone I like versus getting a paycheck from someone I don't like. Yeah. So and it's funny because I don't think people realize this a lot about my show, but I've had the same 3 core sponsors since 2016, since the day I started a YouTube channel. The same first 3 brands that ever believed in me are still the ones that pay me my salary right now. I have some that added since then, but my main 3 have been there. And it's because I went through these 3 stages that we've been talking about for the last few weeks here, where I built a foundation. So I added the next foundation on top of that one. And I just built this really solid base of always giving more than I'm getting and always creating value and always making sure I make money for these brands. So next year they're growing with me all the time. And that's a really important part of the stage because you have brands that don't have a budget that you want to work with. Like if you don't want to spend, a couple $1,000s on a bunch of fishing reels, but you can't get a fishing reel company to pay you money, but they're offering you free product, take it because it's saving you thousands of dollars still. And if you really like the product, don't do it just for free product. Do it because you genuinely like you're a customer already. And then eventually, if you do a good job, then you'll be creating a budget for them. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what we're talking about today is creating that budget for them. Because even if it's a multi-million-dollar company, like Pure Fishing, like I work with Berkeley and Abu Garcia, like Pure Fishing, they're the largest fishing company in the world. They own they're huge. They're great. They have everything you need in one umbrella. And even a company like that, I treat them the same as I treat, Jim Bob's Bait Company. It's the same exact thing to me. I have to create revenue and create a budget. Even though they have a budget, I have to earn that budget. I don't ask for it. I create that for them and make them see that I make them money. So it only makes sense. Like you put gas in the machine that you need to keep in business. You know what I mean? Like you need the engine to keep running. You put gas in it over and over. You keep it running. So I try to make sure I'm always that smooth running engine. So every brand I work with never has to stop putting gas in it.
Right.
So the pro staff will go away. Don't think that you're above pro staffs at any level because that's the complete opposite. I will take a pro staff from any company. I don't use a discount thing. I just do product exchange. But any company that I believe in that doesn't have a budget, even if they're $1 million company, they're just like, hey, we don't have a budget for your show. And I'm like, cool, but I really like, I'm talking to a brand right now about that actually, that I'm like a huge fan of theirs. And I'm like, look, I already have a competitor that's a sponsor, but I'd rather work with you and lose the money because I like your product way better. Like I really like your product. And they're a huge $1 million company that is just like, sorry, we have no budget. We're struggling from COVID. Like we just don't have a marketing budget.
Sure.
So pro staffs don't mean they're a small company. They don't mean that they're huge companies. They don't mean they have nothing to offer you. It just means that a pro staff is a promotional staff position where your job is to be a promotional, what's the word I'm looking for? I almost said mascot, but that's not the word.
Steward.
Yeah, steward or like a representative, I guess.
Yeah,
I can't think of the word,
sure.
but yeah, like you're a representative in the marketing department.
Mhm.
And that's what promotional staff is. It's not anything fancy. It's nothing. It's like, you know, when I used to own a bar, Miller Lite and Anheuser-Busch and stuff would send their pro staff to our bar, and it'd be a bunch of girls in, you know, cute clothing handing out shots or samples or whatever, and that was their pro staff. So a pro staff is nothing glamorous. It's not professional staff. You're part of a promotional team, and there's nothing wrong with being part of a promotional team at any stage of your career, whether you're first starting or, you know, if you're, you know, Tiger Woods. You know, it doesn't matter who you are.
Sure.
Sorry for
no, you're good. Richard tuned in and he said most companies can come up with a trade if cash is not an option.
Exactly,
And he said being creative is great advice. And I mean, look at it, man. I mean, Richard's always been great to the Paddle and Fin podcast, and like we promote the crap out of his business all the time. I mean, I think we go at least one episode by saying Eastport Marina at least once on Dale Hollow Lake, you know, like. But I mean, that's just it, man. Like, like you're saying, Mike, like you believe in the product. It's the same thing. Like we believe in Eastport Marina, like one of the most beautiful places to go, hang out, have a great time, be treated like family, and catch a few fish. Like it's the same concept. I'd much rather deal with Richard than like Bass Pro Shops, Resort World, that, you know, is just like, your nose has got to be stuck in the air in order to afford to pay for a room there. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the point, is wouldn't you rather promote?
I'd rather, yeah.
Then not because, like, regardless if they both offered you a paycheck, obviously Bass Pro Shop has more money, right?
Sure.
They have a bigger budget. They can.
I don't know. Richard, he seems like he's buying all kinds of toys and things all the time. So I don't know about that, but
like,
go ahead.
Johnny Morris money is different than anyone else's money. I've learned that the hard way. Like that dude's a different level of money.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Like if you dig into it, what that dude actually owns, you're like, oh, he owns that. Like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, he owns that too. Oh, okay, cool.
Dude,
like,
it's crazy. Yeah.
I didn't know the Johnny Morris empire. I didn't know what, like, I thought he owned Bass Pro Shop and Tracker, like, which is cool. That's huge. But that dude's just, anyway. Yeah. But the point is that no matter how much money they have, you're promoting the one that has less of a budget for marketing.
Sure.
Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah.
Because it's something you believe in and it's real. Now, if you promoted his marina and you ended up, and he's like, hey, I just made like 50 grand extra this year because, like, directly because of you promoting it. Now you just created a budget. So now if you go to him and say, hey, I want you to sponsor the podcast, and he's like, well, he's making me 50 grand a year. So you know what I mean? Like,
that says he's cash poor.
That's what rich people say.
Yeah, I know, right? Like all of my, you know, all my money's tied up in investments.
That's why I always say all the time, like, you know, I wish I had $5 to give you, man, but all my money's tied up in stocks, and I mean, you know how it goes, right?
Yeah. Not many like marina owners like drive around in Teslas, you know.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, marinas were part of the disposal business for the mafia. Just saying.
Yeah. Hey. Well, I mean, I'm not asking those questions.
Yeah, we that's why we said we like Richard.
Yeah.
I know.
No, it's the point though. Is you want to create your own budget instead of asking someone for money. You know, and it's funny because I've talked to some of these massive companies like Ford and GM and, like, you know, Little Caesars, like big, huge companies. And it's the same thing. I treat them like they're a mom and pop bait shop. I treat them like they don't have money, like they don't have a budget, because I want to create a budget no matter what I do. That's how you keep sponsors for 5 years or 6 years that I'm going on with the same sponsors. You know, when I was leaving iCast, one of my sponsors, told me, I was like, hey, we got to talk next week or something about next season. I want to make sure you guys are on board still. And he looked at me and he goes, hey man, whatever you do, we'll be a part of it. He's like, so don't worry about talking to us about it. We'll just figure it out whenever it comes up. Like we're always going to be part of what you do. And it was the best feeling I've ever had with a sponsor, because it wasn't because I was like, oh, good, I have security. It was, which I guess was a good thing too, but it was mainly because I was like, wow, I did a good job. Like I must have done really good the last 5 years. I've always built a bigger budget for myself with them. You know, they've consistently grown with me. You know, they're definitely not paying me what they paid me 5 years ago. I hope in 5 years they're paying me more than they are now. But for him to say, like, we believe in you and your brand that much that no matter what you do, we'll be with you. I was like, oh, geez. All right. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. And that's not the only sponsor that feels that way. And, you know, I see other guys that do what I do, or just in the industry in general, that go through sponsors every season. And, you know, they'll keep one or two, then get new ones. The next year they lose those two. And it's a big deal to them. And I'm like, wow, it's crazy to me. Like, how do you lose a relationship with a brand? Like, how do you lose a sponsor? I guess it sounds weird to say, but like, I've never actually lost a sponsor. Like, no one's ever called me up and just like, hey man, we're leaving, we're out. Like, I've had brands that couldn't keep up, where they were like, hey, we can't go to retail, so we can't follow you up this journey kind of thing, or we're not big enough to do it, or, you know, all these things. But I've never had a sponsor to say, you're not doing a good enough job, I'm out.
Right.
And I take pride in that, because I work really hard at this stage that we're talking about today of trying to make sure that you're building your budget. So every year, even if the brand I'm representing is losing money that year, then they're going to gain money in what I'm doing. You know, they could lose money in retail, they could lose money online sales, whatever it is, but in whatever I'm promoting for them will be going upward no matter what. And I find new ways. If they call me up and say, hey man, our sales are down, nothing's working right now, like, what can we do? That's when I get creative and go, all right, well, what are you not doing? Like, what other avenue can we do this? Like, hey, I have an idea. How about we promote this product differently, this way, this way, this way? And if that changes the whole course of their business, how valuable am I to them? You know what I mean? They're like, dude, you just saved our butt. Like, we were going down like this, but now this product just bailed us out. Like, thank you so much. Then what happens next year when it comes to negotiations for contract for my show? They're going to remember that and go, well, dude, you created a budget. Like, you literally made us extra money. So here you go. Here's your cut. You know what I mean? And if you do that more than once, then that brand is going to look at you as an asset. They're going to look at you as valuable. They're going to look at you as just as important as any other employee they have. You're part of the gear or the machine at that point, where if they can't operate the machine without the gear. And that's where you want to make yourself successful at, is being a gear, being a cog in the machine, I guess, of their business. Because if they can operate without you, they will 100%. And why wouldn't they? You know, trimming fat is one of the number one business strategies that you have to do as a business owner, is constantly trim fat. You're constantly cutting out extra things that you don't need in order to be more profitable and keep up with everything. If you become a necessity and you're a cog in the machine, you're untrimmable. And that's the most important part. Even as a pro staffer, if you're the top pro staffer for a company, you're just as valuable as some dude on TV. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, there's brands that I work with guys that are way bigger than me, like way bigger followings, way bigger influence, way bigger TV shows than mine. And I do better for them than that guy does, because this guy has the numbers, this guy has this, but I've created that budget so many times over where they're like, dude, this guy's valuable. Like, this guy's got an audience, but this guy like finds creative ways to always change and evolve.
Well, I want to bring up something too. Like, there's something that's overlooked a lot, is like being a writer, writing articles.
Oh yeah, dude, that's totally underrated.
You know, and I know a lot of people like think that, you know, a lot of people don't do it because maybe they can't, or they think they can't because they can't develop that skill, or, you know, whatever. But I mean, I think a lot of people out there can write. They just don't think they're good enough to put it out there. But whatever the case may be, if you're in some, you know, if you're writing like your own blog, or you're in, you know, some of the top magazines that are out there, even if it's just a small article, even if it's, you know, commonly accompanied with like a good picture or something like that, you're going to get your name out doing that. And you're going to do that stuff for free. You know what I mean? But you're building, you know, you're building, you know, or marketing yourself, right?
Yeah, your reputation.
Yeah. I mean, so
you're doing something that someone else will be paid to do, and that's you got to realize, like, creating content. Like, companies need a marketing department, whether they have one or not. They need a marketing department, and that marketing department's job is to create content, promote content, come up with new ways to promote stuff, write articles, press releases. If you're doing one of those things, like writing an article for them, that's value to them. It's saving them money from somebody else that's either not doing it or someone that doesn't have to do it, or from a different angle. And if you get it published or get it posted somewhere, even better. If anything, just send it to them. I have a sponsor I work with at one of the teams. That's one of the team requirements, is that all the guys on the team, on the pro staff level at least, submit blogs and articles. And then the marketing director for that company sends those articles to all the magazines and all the websites and Wired to Fish and all stuff like that. So not only do you have an opportunity to get published in a big magazine or a big website like Wired to Fish or something like that, but you're also creating value because that company uses that article, promotes it, and it creates sales and conversions for you or for that company. Now you just became an asset. You know what I mean? So like you said, writing, taking pictures, doing video work, literally reviews, literally anything you can think of that a marketing department would be responsible for, just start doing it for somebody. So start doing it at a pro staff level, start doing it for free products, start doing it for anything you can, because then you'll create a budget and find out which one works best for you. If you find out that you're a really creative writer, focus on writing. Writing is so overlooked because people don't think that writing is valuable as video. But it literally just is. Like, my buddy's a full-time writer and photographer for a bunch of gun magazines. And it's funny how I always do video work for him because the video accompanies the article. But the article is where the meat is. The article is where, like, that's where the content really is. People want to read about it, and then they can watch the visual version afterwards. So it's the same thing in fishing. It really is. There's not enough written. There's not enough written reviews. Everyone grabs a GoPro or a phone and does a YouTube video. But doing a written review that actually relates to people, it's a big difference. Yeah, like right there. That's awesome.
Perfect example is Dustin Nichols, man. He's got an article, it seems like every month, in Saltwater Angler magazine.
Every week
has a beautiful photo. And not only that, but like something he does, you can see there, he's got all his sponsor logos in that article. So he's promoting, the companies he works with as well. I mean, so that's creating
value, because now all those brands that he just plugged in there are getting exposure in a magazine without having to pay for advertising.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that one, or that who he writes for, is in like 200,000 locations or something like that.
Jeez, that's
like,
awesome.
It's like pretty much everywhere out there in the salt world. But
good for him though, man. Like, that's a good avenue to do. And if he's getting published that often, like,
well, he's good at it too. Like he doesn't burn himself out like somehow. And when the last time I talked to him, I think he's commissioned for like 2 articles a month.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, so he's been doing this for a while too. I mean, but Dustin is definitely very talented in that area and takes great shots. I mean, some of the most awesome shots you'll ever see, like, of saltwater fish. I mean, Dustin's he's a pretty in-depth dude anyway. I mean, he's like, he was almost a pro skater and all that stuff. I mean, this dude's got some background, so he's got creativeness in him,
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool though. That's creating that's a perfect example, because, by the way, I was peeping that paddle and fin sticker on the front of that kayak too.
Yeah, I saw it too.
But you're like, we didn't pick that for no reason. But what's cool though is that's a really good visual example right there of how you create revenue in unique ways, because including his sponsors in that article is genius, because that's the stuff that I've been doing for 5 years. That's one of the small little hidden tricks or not really hidden, but one of the small little tricks that I've been doing, because people don't realize that there's a lot more value when you put links of a chain together than there is by themselves. A chain link by itself is literally completely useless, but you combine them together and now you have something that's an amazing tool that you can use a million different things, right? So I deal with all my brands. Every brand I work with, there's a lot of synergy between them, where I'm like, hey, maybe when you buy a fishing rod, you get a free bait, or maybe when you go on this website for this sponsor, then this sponsor is also on there featured for this product that doesn't compete with them. Or, you try to find ways to get them to merge together. Or if one sponsor is doing something really cool, like a charity event or something like that, then get the other sponsors you work with involved, or brands that you want to work with. It's a really good way to break the ice, is to go, hey, one of these brands I work with is doing this big charity event. can you guys donate to it, or, do something? Can you buy an advertising spot, whatever we can do? I want to get you part of this. Then now they're part of your little family. They're part of your little circle, and you can create revenue like that. And if, let's say, Paddle and Fin is like an outdoor company, like you see of products, like physical products, and you told me that yeah, we don't have a budget, we wish we could, but we don't make enough money. And I was like, hey, I'm getting ready to go do an interview on whatever thing I'm doing. It's a huge platform. I'm going to plug your product on there for free. Like, let me just see if I can do something cool, and I'll just bring your product out there and just have it in my hands, or whatever I can naturally find a way to do it. But that might have created a bunch of sales for you, which gave you a budget, which makes you think you're going to make more money off of me, which just literally bought me a sponsor. And there's really creative ways to do that. If you have another outlet. This kind of goes into last week, I talked about playing chess instead of checkers. And the time before that, I talked about that too. And what I mean by playing chess is not just making more strategic moves, but also thinking like 10 moves ahead and how they're going to affect each move. So when I do a TV interview with my local town about the summer camps I'm doing or something, I will purposely think of what hat I'm going to wear, what shirt I'm going to wear, how can I include this brand in this way? Maybe I can do this. Like, I find really cool ways to do it where I'm like, maybe I can subliminally kind of mention this brand in my speech. Like, maybe I can be like, oh yeah, we were out there and, we didn't get to go kayaking this time. I was really hoping to have my nice big Feel Free kayak out there because the kids love to see it. And that's like a little plug for Feel Free kayaks right there that I just threw into a speech where maybe someone will hear it and it'll convert into a sale. And that's like the little things you can do to really create revenue in a different way for a brand, besides just the normal, I made a post on Facebook and tagged you in it. That doesn't really generate sales anymore. Infomercials used to be so effective that if you watch TV at any time between like midnight and 6 a.m., any channel, it was all infomercials because they were so effective, right? They've died off so much where people laugh at them now. Like the ShamWow guy became like an iconic meme almost at this point. But he was so effective in his prime. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. It's so funny you bringing him up because I actually had that thought like of you earlier, like imitating him doing something like you're like, I'm not gonna go on something and be like, I'm not gonna be trying to sell you something like, yeah. I was like, I want to see Mikey do the ShamWow.
Yeah. Mike could do the ShamWow.
Yeah. He's gonna be like Berkeley.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing though. So literally the number one thing that I talk to brands about is how I don't do that. How you'll never see me ever go, use this. I'll never do that. I literally will just be like, here's a picture of me catching a fish and here's the rod I used. And this is why I used it. Maybe it'll work for you too. And it works so much better because the ShamWow marketing was great in the 90s and early 2000s and in the 80s too. It was great. But you got to realize that those things die off. So you need to find new avenues to promote. And that's where you get a little bit more creative and go, all right, the infomercial thing is dead. How can I promote without being infomercially? And I want to create a relationship with this brand where they continue to use me, not just for this trend. A lot of guys that have big Instagram followings get this a lot, where you'll get messages from people being like, hey, we saw your Instagram, we love it, we want to offer you our product at 20% off. It's a detailing for your car. Like, I get those all the time and I'm just like, delete. Yeah. But because they see a following, they assume that you can do that. But if you find creative ways to do it, like you find really new, unique ways to do it that's not on social media. I'm not posting it and hashtagging on Instagram because that doesn't really work in our industry. It doesn't work in almost any industry, to be honest with you. If you have 1 million followers on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and you have a 1% conversion ratio, that's good. Like 1% is a great conversion ratio. So help me out with the math real quick. 1% of 1 million, is that 1,000?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that means that you converted 1,000 people into sales, which it sounds awesome, but that's if you have 1 million followers and that math equation. You have to have 1 million followers to even hit 1,000 sales. And that's if you hit 1%. 1% is a good return. So, having a lot of followers, having that kind of strategy doesn't do much, but finding a unique way, like writing an article and finding a way to plug your brands, doing an interview with Paddle and Fin. And if you didn't notice, I plugged Feel Free a minute ago. Like finding ways to do that, that's where you actually can create revenue and create value to a brand. To stop doing what everyone else is doing or has done, find a new way to do it, because that's where the brands can really, really grow. And that's where they can really get help from. Like, brands need help. They need help promoting. They need help getting in the inner workings of every industry. And if you find a new way to do it for them, you're very valuable. If you don't find a new way to do it, you're very interchangeable with the next guy who can do the same thing you do.
So we got Jeremy Rathbun in the chat. He says, what's your best advice to get a company to even look at you, whether it's a big company or a mom and pop shop?
I was reading the comment below it where it said, how do you make Jay not suck?
I was skipping over that.
I don't even know who that greaseball is.
Anyway, so Jeremy Rathbun, sorry. Best advice to get a company to look at you. So when I want to get on a company's radar, well, it's different now because now I have a TV show. It's a little bit different because now some people have already heard of what I do.
See, you were just normal Mike Mckinstry, just got into it.
Yeah.
How are you trying to grab a company's attention?
I still do this sometimes, I guess. I guess I should say that. I still do this sometimes, but the way I started doing it, I still do sometimes. But I reach out to a brand, and let's say I have no way of physically reaching out to them. Like they're not if it's not a mom and pop shop, like somewhere I can just go to physically. I honestly reach out to the social media person because assuming they have a separate person, if it's the owner that runs the social media, it's even better. But I reach out on social media first because at the end of the day, every business owner will look at your social media no matter what. They're going to, whether they care about your viewers or not, or your followers or not, doesn't matter. They're going to look at it, and they should. That's what I do for a lot of brands that I work with too, is I comb through social media for people sometimes. So I would reach out on social media, make it easier for them. And just be like, hey, I'm interested in this, and just want to have a conversation with you. 9 out of 10 times they'll tell you who to talk to, or say, yes, I'm the person to talk to, and they'll have a conversation. That's all you really need to do, is have a conversation, because if you believe in yourself and you believe in your ability, you can portray that correctly to them in an elevator pitch, which is like a 15-second pitch. They're going to be interested in having a full conversation with you, which is literally step one of, it's called getting past the gatekeeper, is just getting in the door. That's the first step of any sale, is you need to get in the door. So reach out to them on social media, message them on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you see them being present the most. And if it is a physical shop, then go in there as a customer, buy something as a customer. And then when you're checking out, then you start a conversation. So you're not just trying to be there as a salesperson. And it's pretty easy to start talking to brands. Like, people think it's so hard. It's not. Getting past that step is where all these 3 steps that we've been talking about start coming into play. But getting a conversation, it isn't difficult at all. And if you can't get a conversation, if you can't even sell yourself like that, then you got to really think about pursuing anything in the industry, because that's the first step. And if a customer or a company is going to look at you, the way you talk to them, as if you're talking to a customer. So if you walk in confident and you're like, hey, this is what I do, I'm excited, I'm passionate, and I show everything, I show you all my feelings in my voice, so I'm passionate, I'm excited, that guy is going to be like, wow, this guy could sell just like that to everybody else. But if you walk in there shy and scared and timid, they're not going to really think that you're going to be able to promote their product correctly anyway. You know what I mean? So when you talk to a brand, just go for it, man. Like, literally be yourself, put yourself on a platter and just serve it to them and say, here I am. Here's what I want to do. Here's my goals. I love what you do because of this. Here's where I think I could help you. What do you think? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And to add to that, like when you're asking them, making a conversation through social media, maybe just ask them like, hey, is there any particular kind of photos or videos you guys are looking for that you could use? Like I've done that for a couple of the companies I work with, like right now, right? Like, obviously New Canoe, they're doing a big push in the hunting side of things. So like, obviously they're looking for certain photos, hunting related content with their New Canoe kayaks. Yeah. So right now I'm trying to get a bunch of that so they can use that to help promote what they're trying to do in their next level of promotional items, So, I mean, and don't be bashful. And like, I think, Mike touched on it too. Like, don't walk in and just be like, hey, I'm Jeremy Rathbun, I like to catch fish. You know what I mean? Like, be energetic, like show them. Yep. Yeah, show them your passion. Like, you really got to be amped up, like I think I've done that a couple of times, like just totally burnt out on day 4 of a trade show. And I'm talking to somebody I should be more excited about, and like walk away from the conversation like, oh, well, I really screwed that up because I sound like I've didn't get any sleep last night, which I didn't. And I maybe have sound, not as passionate as I should have been about what we were talking about. Like that first impression makes such a huge impression. You know what I mean? You want to come out banging and really grab their attention.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John Rapp just made a good point too, to feed off that, where he said you need to show history with, well, you can read it right there. You need to show history with a product that company service. Don't go in naked, meaning you're looking for a handout because you have followers. That's literally what I always preach all the time about this whole topic right here is do research. Like if I want to talk to, I'm trying to think of a company. Let's just say Columbia Fishing. If I want to reach out to Columbia Fishing and work with them, you better believe I'm going to comb through every single bit of social media they have. I'm going to go through their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I'm going to look for LinkedIn. I'm going to look for their website. I'm going to try to find the about us and read the history and see how the owner started it. I'm going to look at the executive team and see who the marketing director is and get a face and a name to it. Then I'll go through their social media sometimes if it's a really big company, like a big public company where everything's visible, just to kind of see what the people are all about, see what the brands are about. And then if I've never used their product, first thing I do is go on their website or find a local retailer in my area. And I go right to the website though. And I avoid going to a physical store for a good reason, because I want to see how the customer service is at the company level. I want to see if their shipping's fast. I want to see how the customer service is. And I call, and every brand I work with knows this, but every brand I don't work with doesn't know this yet, but they will if I work with them. I call as a fake customer after I buy something, and I call and ask questions. I'll call and make up some weird thing like, hey, I don't understand how this thing works. Can you explain it to me? Even if I do, because I just want to know how they work with me. If everything goes perfectly, I like their product, they treated me great, they were great service, shipping was fast, pricing was good, then I reach out to them. I don't ever send someone a blind Facebook message like, hey, I want to work with you. I won't do that, because what do I have to offer if I don't really know who you are? So I do a stupid amount of research because it's important to me. And then honestly, these brands respect that. When I come to them and say, hey, last week I had a meeting with a sponsor or a potential sponsor. And I was like, hey, the way that your founder started this company is exactly how I started my show. Like we have the same beliefs. And she was so shocked that I knew his story, but I'm like, yeah, I saw it on a website somewhere. He did a interview like 6 years ago. He talked about it and I read the whole thing because I want to know who this guy was. I want to know who I'm potentially partnering up with here.
Sure.
And when I started like spitting out facts about her own company, and she was like, geez, like, have you worked with us before? And I was like, no, I'm just a fan. And here's the 3 products that I've used of yours. This one I've only had for a few weeks. I just ordered it. But this one I've had for 3 years and never really thought about it, but you guys would be a great fit in what I do. And here's why. But then once I get past that point, something you mentioned a little bit ago, once I get past that point and I get a conversation, then I ask, what's your marketing strategy? Like, what's your marketing goals? Like, I just talked to a propane company about this. And I said, what's your marketing goals? And she goes, promoting residential propane. I'm like, cool. Now I know how to cater my sales pitch before I even give it to you, because I know what you're trying to promote. So now how can I promote residential propane for you? And I'm like, okay, good. My show is on the Pursuit channel. It's the #1 channel on satellite for satellite users because it's free on satellite. So it comes automatically. Anybody who has satellite, people who have satellite are also in remote areas who run off propane. Now we just got residential propane. So that's how luckily I did the research. I know how the guy started the propane company. I know his history. I know their customer service department. I know the local stores around me that carry that brand and how they work. Like I learned all of this before I had my first meeting with them. And now I'm on my 8th meeting with them, because I did all of that research and that background. And, they've never heard of me or my show. They could care less about my social media following, which is awesome. It's just the homework is literally what separates people who do this for a living and who want to do this for a living. Mm-hmm. It's the homework. It's the grinding. It's the 3 a.m. I'm Googling stuff still, and I'm spending 3 months doing research and testing. And maybe I find out I don't like the company after I deal with customer service. I did that with a company, actually, a company I used to use their reels. I had a reel handle break on me before I was sponsored by them. And I called them up and said, hey, I got this problem. And they told me pretty much F off. Like, they're like, we don't deal with that. You need to buy a new one. And I was like, what? Like, you can't sell me a reel handle? It shouldn't have snapped in half. And they're like, well, it is what it is. And I'm like, holy crap. So when it came time to them being like, hey, we want to work with you, I was like, no, I don't. Because if you treat me like that,
Yeah.
How are you going to treat my buddy that I tell him to go to you, or my friend that goes to you, or a stranger that heard of it because of me, and then they get the same experience? That's not going to happen, because now you're going to make me
reflects
look bad.
on you then.
Exactly. So there's the homework is literally like, and it's funny because when I was talking to guys that did this, were professionals in the industry before I was, and I was asking their advice on stuff, the number one thing they told me was, be authentic and be real and all these things that I still stand true with today. But the one thing that they never told me was that brands will see right through you 100%, because you're not the first person to call them. You're not the first person to ask for money or a pro staff. You're number 1,000 or 100,000 or 1 million. And they're not going to take it lightly. They've been burned by everybody before you. It's kind of like dating a girl in your mid 30s. Like, it's kind of like where I'm at in my life, like dating someone in your mid 30s. You're literally, if you're dating someone your own age, you're literally dating somebody who's already been screwed over or lied to, most likely. So you're battling against all that negativity, all the they're automatically going to assume all these assumptions about you and who you are. So you need to make sure you show who you are, you stay true who you are, you do your homework, you do your research, you test the products out, you make sure you're prepared, because you want to be different than everybody else that screwed them over in the past. You want to make sure you can stand out and go, look, I'm the real deal. I'm not going to give up because it's hard. I'm not going to, I didn't cut any corners. Literally, I memorized your company history because it mattered to me. Like, that's it. And if they don't work with you, you part on really good terms, because that guy knows this guy that knows this guy that knows this guy. Mm-hmm. And it turns into this big circle where, like, oh, you know what? We can't work with you, but we have a parent company that might work with you. And that's happened before too. So, it's really important that you do that. Don't call up somebody and expect to get anything because you think you're somebody or you have something. My favorite email that I get at least once a day from one of my sponsors, because I help out with pro staff teams on a lot of companies. They're like, hey, give me free product and I'll mention your name on the podium next week at the tournament. And it's all they say. And it's the funniest email, because I used to reply to them. Now I just quit replying to them because it just got ridiculous after a while. But it's like, that's the worst thing to do. Stop assuming that you get something because you say that you will give something. Give something first and earn that. You don't have to ask for it. I don't have to ask for money from my sponsors, from my existing sponsors. They just literally tell me, here's our budget that we're going to give you. And I say, cool, that works. Or no, that doesn't work. And that's it, because we're at that level where I've earned whatever they feel like they want to give me. I don't need to ask for anything, and that's kind of where my experience comes from in this whole topic. Is I got to the point where I don't have to ask for money anymore. I don't have to ask for budgets. I don't have to call up brands and be like, hey, I really want you to pay me for this. They call me and say, hey, our budget's, 20 grand or whatever it is. And what can you do with that? And I'll say, here's my plan. And we make a deal. You know what I mean? And that's where you want to get, but you have to do the research. You have to build a following. You have to be unique. You have to be different. You have to do all those steps in order for that to work. And it's got to be all unique to you. Like, you can't follow my footsteps or, Kevin Van Dam's footsteps or anyone's footsteps. You literally have to do it yourself. You have to be different from everybody else. If you want to be the same as somebody else, then don't expect longevity. Don't expect any uniqueness. Expect to be one of those sponsor hoppers where every year you're trying to find a new brand because you didn't do anything different for this brand than the other guy did. So you got to pick your path. Do you want to have longevity and have stability, or you want to fly by the seat of your pants and just hope that you make $1 tomorrow? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and that's something too, like I wanted to bring up, you mentioned you'll go through research, like, is this product local to me? And that kind of triggered something because, I work with a kayak shop here locally. I know some other kayak shops. Obviously, we work with some brands and things like that. Like my rod sponsor, they're newer to the market. They've been around for a while and they're growing. But here in the Midwest, they really lack dealers. And one of our sales reps were coming through, and I was like, look, dude, you got to stop at this shop, this shop, this shop, this shop. And he opened up 3 of those dealers he stopped through. That was bringing value to the company.
Absolutely.
That's huge. That goes a long way. Same thing. Like, we work with Yak Gadget. I've opened up a couple dealerships for him, like dealing with a kayak shop. And you're like, hey, man, you guys should carry this stuff. I love using it. It's great. It's affordable. So check it out. If you're interested, like, I'll get you guys in contact with the man to talk to, like bringing that kind of value, like you're talking about, to a company. That's how you take that next step. That's how you get noticed. That's, It's all about bringing some kind of financial value.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
creating revenue.
It's great that you're sharing photos and tagging these companies, and that does a little bit of a trick. But when you're actually bringing financial value to the table, now you're really getting noticed.
Yeah, if you sign up a dealer that a company didn't have, you literally just created revenue. Like it's not like one sale. You just sign up an actual physical dealer who will most likely reorder and reorder. So that's how you're actually creating value. So, like my rod sponsor I've been with for 5 years, I started with them before they even made rods. They made custom rods. They made one-offs, and that's it. They didn't have production at all. And I've been with them for 5 years. And now, now they're huge. They have 47 models now, I think. 47 models, I believe. And they're huge. I mean, they've sold tens of thousands of rods. And they're not huge. I shouldn't say huge, but they're established. And that's why it's huge. Well, that's why it's important to start. Like pro staff matters. That's why it goes full circle, because I started with that company before they even had a production rod. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to work with them because I got a custom rod from them. My Basquatch rod, it's still in my garage. I don't use it anymore because it's so unique and one-off to me, where I don't want anything to happen to it. So I just put it on my wall in my garage for now. But I started with them when they just had that service, and it's like, how do you promote a $500 custom rod? Like it's nearly impossible. So like, it's a service that I couldn't really promote. I couldn't really make them revenue, but I believed in the people behind it so much. I knew they were going to do something big, and I really loved their product. And when they came out with production, I knew I was going to like it. So I told them, I said, hey, let me see your production. If it's good, if I like your production rods, we'll go full in on this. And once it came to production, they sent me some of the production rods, and I'll tell you what, they are so freaking awesome. And they're just as good now. They're on Gen 3 now, but the Gen 1s were awesome. And now I've been with that brand for 5 years, and now they're a big sponsor of my show. And it grew from literally nothing. And that's the point, though, is I took on a pro staff, I took on a team spot, and I built revenue, and I built a budget. I'm the only person, the first person, and the only person in the TV show that he sponsors. And it's because I created my own revenue. I created value for him every step of the way for the last 5 years, where every year he just built it. And he's like, wait, I put gas in this machine and it runs better. Let me keep putting gas in it. And now 5 years later, we're up here together now, where we started down here, because he knows my integrity. He knows, and we don't have a personal relationship or anything. It's just business, and it makes sense for both of us. It's a great product. It's a great company. And, if we stopped working together tomorrow, I would never say they make bad rods. I would always say their service is great. The warranty is great. They make great products, and it is what it is, so that's the importance of building that base, is building that foundation, is whether it's a phone call, a pro staff spot, an email, build that foundation the right way, because you never know, 5 years from now, it could be literally your lifeline. Like, they could be the ones paying your salary, so it all depends on how you want to build it.
Amen to that, man. I think that's a good note to kind of start winding down and ending. You got anything else you want to add before we end this series, Mike?
I'll end it with this. There's two things I want to say. One, remember, if you're trying to be a professional in any industry, remember it starts with you being professional. Before you start step one, check yourself first. Make sure that you're ready for the journey you're about to take. You don't climb Mount Everest in camouflage gym shorts and a camouflage shirt and a camouflage hat. You don't climb Everest in that. You get ready first. You train, you prepare yourself, you mentally prepare yourself for everything you're going to need on that journey, for anything that's going to come up. That it's no different than taking any leap in life at all. Make sure you're prepared for the journey. Know what you're getting into. Ask questions from people that have done it or might be doing it too, and say, hey, how do I prepare for it? Like, literally, I did the same thing. I talked to Chad Hoover, Robert Field, Gene Jensen, Kevin Van Dam. Who else did I talk to? I talked to other people that I know that are just like on TV and stuff, not in fishing. And I got as much feedback as I could for almost a year before felt like I was prepared enough to quit my day job full time and do this for a living. And it was almost a year of me just preparing myself. And that really helped me a lot. I still wasn't ready for everything, but remember, being a professional starts with being professional. So that's the first thing. Second thing I wanted to say, any questions anyone has on this topic, you can message me anytime, 24 hours a day. I'm super transparent about all my stuff. And I don't see anybody as competition. I get this all the time where people are like, wow, I'm shocked you shared this with me or you helped me. And I'm like, dude, a million videos get uploaded every day on YouTube. So you're not my YouTube competitor. Social media is ridiculous. It's like, it's not even a real life, to be honest with you. So
Sure.
there's no competition on social media. And as far as TV goes or anything else I do, there's no such thing as competition, because if Pedal and Fin podcast gets bigger because of something I do, then it's going to make you more popular, which makes your episodes that I'm in more popular, which gives me more of an audience. So at the end of the day, a rising tide raises all ships that are in the water. So I'll help anybody. So if anyone needs help with anything, if you want advice on something, I've helped people with making resumes before. I've helped people getting speeches together for companies. If I know the company, I might be able to help you out with it too. So if you have any questions, you guys can message me, reach me anytime you want, and I'm more than happy to help you guys out.
And we'll put Mike's phone number on the screen right now.
Yeah, I'll change it. You know, what's funny is I've had the same number for like 19 years, and I've always been so scared to put my number publicly because I'm like, if I got to change it.
Oh, well, you need some change in your life then, Mike.
If you do that, Jay, just wait to see where your number pops up at.
I know. You travel too much for that. I don't want any of that kind of stuff.
I don't know how many bathroom walls I can write your number on, but I'll stop.
Oh, that's great, man.
I'll just hey, I got Justin Bieber's phone number. Everyone send pictures. Here you go, and I'll just put your phone number in.
Yeah,
that's funny. No, dude, it's been a solid 3 episodes. A lot of great info for those that are just trying to dip their feet into it, or some of those guys that are trying to make the next step and, really dive into it. And I think you hit the nail on the head, because I know Jay and I both get asked a lot, like, all right, well, I've been promoting this company for, 2 years and I feel like I'm going nowhere. And, how do I make the next step? How do I get them to pay me money or whatever it may be, or give me free product? And it's like, well, what are you doing different than everybody else? And that's the thing. Like, you got to be unique. You got to be different, stay on your game, and just provide that financial backing to the company to where it makes sense.
Well, my favorite analogy, and sorry, I'm going to cut you off. I just want to squeeze this in.
No, you're good.
My favorite analogy in life in general, but it applies to this industry, applies to anything. But my favorite analogy in life in general is if you're in traffic and the guy in front of you is stopping you from moving, switch lanes and go faster. And as soon as that lane gets clogged up and you're not moving anymore, switch lanes. Eventually you can take an off ramp and go a totally different path. Sometimes like there's no straight line in life, let alone this industry. So if you find yourself at a ceiling where you're like, hey, this company just isn't budging, nothing's happening, switch lanes. That's it. Find another way to do it. Find another avenue. And if that's not working either, keep on switching lanes until you find your path. Maybe weaving out of traffic sometimes, zigzag, whatever. Sometimes you're getting a traffic jam and got to slow down, but you always find the open lane. And if it doesn't work, get off on the next exit and find another person, another company, another brand that you can grow with. I've never lost a sponsor, but I've left a sponsor before because they weren't growing the way I wanted to grow, or I got treated wrong and I didn't feel comfortable with it or something, or they treated someone else wrong, or they couldn't grow with me, or, there's a lot of reasons. And you can just take an exit and go, I'm going to get out of this one and I'm going to go on this new path. And then do the same thing. If you get clogged up, switch lanes. That's it. Just think of a different way to go around it. That's all you got to do. And literally you can overcome any obstacle in life if you have the mentality. If you're just like, cool, something's right in front of me. But sometimes we forget that we can just kind of do one of those things. You know what I mean? Like we forget that we can just do it. Yeah. We forget we can look around things and go, oh, wait a minute. I can just make this move and we'll be good. Like I don't need to battle this thing and fight it and hit it over and over. I can just go around it. So if you're not getting somewhere with a sponsor, switch lanes, find a new avenue with them. And I've done that too, where brands are like, hey, it's not working. This isn't happening. And I'll say, cool. Do you guys have a guy that does video work? No, let me do some videos for you. Let me help supplement our agreement by doing more content. Or do you need a blog written, or, all the other things? Like, what else can I do? Because what I'm doing now isn't growing with you. What can I do? So always don't be afraid to switch lanes, guys, because trust me, there's nothing better feeling in the world than when you're in a traffic jam and you get that one open lane and you can just floor it and you get the wind back in your hair again. And, it's the best feeling in the world. So keeping that constant is really important.
Heck yeah, man. Mr. Randall, final thoughts.
Yep.
That's pretty much how I think the brain works right there, Jay. I feel like you're the Peter Griffin of real life.
That's right. I don't know if I like that comparison. We're gonna have to talk.
Oh, that's great.
No, what Mike's saying is, it's all relative, right? It's stay flexible. Don't be willing, or be willing to say no if you don't feel it's the right connection.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing too, right?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't even touch on that. I think a lot of guys out there just like jump at every opportunity and sees what sticks,
Woo tungsten.
But you hit it on the head, man.
Yeah,
Once
but
in a while, you got to say no.
Yeah. I mean, it's you may think you want that as a prospect, and I'm telling you right now, if you get too many under your belt and it's a lot to handle, you got to stay true to it.
Yeah, you don't want 75 sponsors. You can't keep up with that. You can't actually deliver anything if you have more than 5 or 10 sponsors the most. I mean, depends what you can handle. So don't overdo it just to get stickers or to get Don't think that makes you cool. It doesn't. It'll make you fail.
You get just stickers.
You get. I know what you get stickers.
Are they the scratch and sniff kind?
Yeah. That's
These are available at BasquatchHunter.com or at BasquatchClothing.com. Just so you guys know.
As much as we promoted you, I think you'd at least send me a sticker, Mike.
Dude, if you guys want some, send me a message. I'm being serious. I'll send you guys a bunch. Send me a message. You guys can also, if someone wants stickers, if you don't want to go online and buy them, you can also buy them through me because I have about 100 that I always keep with me to give out when I see people.
I'm going to start putting in my cop cars.
Dude, so somebody at a trade show, you were there. I think you were there with me. I think it was the Novi show.
Was it?
Someone took my old stickers that I had and put them all over like the walls because I was handing them out there, and they were all over the walls, the garbage cans. It got to the point where the event company that runs the whole trade show contacted me, and they're like, "Hey, this is graffiti," and this is. I'm like, "Look, I didn't do that. Like, I handed them out. I'm sorry. Like, people thought they were cool. They put them on other people's booths, like everywhere." And I was like, "Oh man." And it made me look terrible. And I was like, I'm sorry. So they told me I wasn't allowed to bring stickers anymore. So I quit bringing stickers to trade shows.
Mike is like, that's a marketing technique that I don't do anymore.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Anyway, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it all the time. You guys are awesome.
Thanks for coming on, Mike. Thanks for all your knowledge, man. It's been great doing this series with you as always. Just sitting down, chatting with you. I don't know what sound effect that was, but
I think it was cheering, but it came through like it was.
Yeah. Was it weird?
Yeah. It sounded like the wind was blowing hard.
Yeah, the frequencies were fighting each other on that
really?
one.
I never know how that works if I hit sound effects. Like,
yeah. See that you can hear, like that you can hear.
That's weird. I think you hear it through because I'm using a different microphone than I normally use. This one's super hot, so I think you hear it through my headphones.
Oh,
I think that's why the applause sounded so weird.
Yeah,
that's possible.
Yeah, we're starting now. See, now he's bringing out all the toys.
Either way, we'll see you guys next week. We hope you guys enjoyed this series and maybe gained something from it. Helps you down the road. I know it's been a topic that's always hot in the kayak fishing community in general. So hopefully it helps you guys. As always, tight lines, smooth paddle. Peace.
Check out the Basquatch Hunter.